Columbia University on the Upper West Side of New York City has already announced what it wants for its students. You remember all the protests, right, over Gaza? Here they say Columbia braces for anti-Semitic protests, locking down campus as students return. How do you think the issue of Gaza plays in November?
Well, Bill, this is why we passed my bill, the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, just a few months ago, overwhelmingly, 320 to 91 votes through the House. Chuck Schumer, the Democratic Senate Majority Leader from New York, who represents Columbia University, refusing to pass this bill through the Senate, even though it has overwhelming bipartisan support. And so I expect when campus returns, you're going to see these protests flare up again because, as we saw just 2 weeks ago down in Washington with the U.S. flag being removed, burned, and the Palestinian flag raised and Hamas spray painted on monuments in Washington, D.C., the pro-Hamas wing of the Democratic Party is growing. And so this is something where I expect we will see these protests flare up again when the students come back.
Probably in Chicago, too, when we get there on Monday. We just want to continue with this Columbia statement because I think there's a key line in here that goes to this point. This change is intended to keep our community safe, given reports of potential disruptions at Columbia and on college campuses across the country. We are particularly concerned about non-affiliates who may not have the best interests of the Columbia community in mind. How do you define non-affiliates other than the fact that they aren't students at that school?
Well, it's just amazing. You know, Bill, I went with Speaker Johnson just a few months ago at the height of these protests to Columbia University. We stood on the steps and called out these students for the abomination that they were committing with these anti-Semitic protests, and we called on President Shafiq to resign in disgrace because her handling of these protests was outrageous. She refused to call law enforcement until the protesters seized control of campus buildings and started breaking and throwing, chairs and desks and tables throughout the building and breaking windows. This type of conduct needs to be combated at every level, starting with Chuck Schumer passing the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, requiring the Department of Education to act and to take on violations of Title VI.